as the most shocking of all time.
Definitely have some more stuff to say about that tornado soon, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, there's going to be an odd path.
That's a good question. I'm not
Hello there
100%
guys
sure.
and
I
welcome
remember
to this
doing
live
research on it. I
stream.
mean that I did
Now,
that video almost a
uh,
year ago
let's
now.
just say that
Given
as I
its
have Saints Row 2
proximity, I
up, we
would
might as
think
well
that
do
it's a
that.
satellite tornado. The
And
anticyclonic ones, they're typically a little
when it
further
comes to the
removed from
GTA
it
trilogy,
on the
around
other side of
Mars
the
4
Gulf like
prefer the
tundra.
definitive editions because
Um,
since I try to
it's
take a crack
possibly
at
anticyclonic. I don't
the
100% know.
fan modified, like the
Typically, when you have
fan
tornadoes in this
version,
close proximity
so
to each other, they're either
of the fan
satellites,
definitive edition.
subvortices, or
I
some other
say, in my opinion, still the
circulation, maybe a merger between two
definitive
satellite
edition,
tornadoes, as the
like the
supercell is
official
cycling
definitive
around.
edition, still
It's a good question.
have a bit more place in my heart than
Yeah,
the fan
so
ones, only just due to the
something
very fact
I want
that
to talk about is what is
I've
one
so far
tornado and what
been
is
trying
a
to
tornado?
I've been
And
trying to do the very
I think there's
slight things
a lot of
within the
misconception
fan definitive
with
edition,
every
but yeah,
individual
I have
funnel
not
is a
gotten
different tornado.
the very same
But the thing
results,
is,
you know, in the
most
fan
updrafts or
definitive that
dramatic
I have in the
circulations
official.
have multiple
Anyways,
vortices.
let's get into
You need to
Saints Row
see
2.
a bunch of
I have some
let
things
me
going on
pull
already
up
to
the
like,
uh,
I have some things going on that basically will have,
is May
some things going on that
20th.
will make sure you guys are,
Where's May
not bored on
1st?
audio wise. So, geez, I'm glad to reload Saints Row. I was hoping to keep this car here, but you guys may not be able to hear anything at all.
Too many days to remember. Oh, maybe it was the 23rd. Sorry.
Which day are you thinking about?
It was the Akron, Colorado.
Let's see here.
Postal
Can you
code.
Oh, I think
guys?
that was like June 21st or 23rd.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not
it
hearing
wasn't
anything
that
from the
bad.
game here, so I'm going to reload it.
So, is
Dang
this two
it.
tornadoes? Or are these two tornadoes? Definitely, you have separate circulations. You clearly see the circulation of the ground here, and another circulation here. You have different funnels, but I think it's just a little disingenuous to call every single circulation a new tornado. I think there are just so many vortices that happen with these storms that to count every individual funnel and every individual circulation as a different tornado is, to me, a little bit weird. Tornado Clips says yes, those were twins. So, okay, Tornado Clips disagrees. And if we watch this, what happens, this other tornado is going to come towards this one. There's a crazy funnel in between them. It's brought around. And then what's going to happen is it's going to turn into one tornado.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example of two different circulations merging with each other under the same mesocyclone. And I think it's important for people to realize that these tornadoes are a lot more complex than you would think they are. It's, at the end of the day, what they are is essentially an aggregation of spinning air around a thunderstorm. So you can get multiple circulations that look like, a tornado with a
I'm all
front above it
tapping,
and a
guys,
cloud below it, but
because
these can all be
I want
the
to
same
make sure
circulations
that
merges coming to a single point to form the main tornado. So sometimes you can have more than one of those visible at a time before they merge together.
because of what I so far have said, you guys do not, you guys are not able to exactly
Sometimes you'll
see
see little spin-ups of dust
what I got going
before
on.
mesocyclone, and they get more and more intense as they combine together until, boom, you get your main tornado.
Yeah, the term is vorticity aggregation. And we'll bring up the goat. This guy, Dr. Lee Orff, does extremely high resolution simulations of supercells, and he is finding things that no one else is finding in simulations because he's doing things no one else is doing. Fluid dynamics requires an extremely high resolution. Like, fluid is very complicated, and you need to have a high resolution to see all these really interesting details. So look, you can see all these individual vertical lines. Those are different vortices.
Yeah, Dr. Lee Orff's work is absolutely incredible. If you've never seen it before, the work this guy is doing is definitely advancing the field at a pace that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yep, you can see the tornado here right in the center. And if you look on the forward flank of the storm, it's kind of hard to picture, but this would be to the east of the tornado, and right along where like the cold outflow is interacting with the inflow. You see that there are these vortices that are forming on what he is calling the SVC. And yeah, these are these individual vortices that might show up as tornadoes. The stronger ones are going to show up as individual tornadoes. They'll be like that Akron, Colorado tornado. But are they different tornadoes? I don't think so. I think it's all one tornado. It's just, this is how all tornadoes are. They're an aggregation. They're a combination of multiple vortices. So to call them different tornadoes, I think is a little bit goofy.
Yeah, the interpretation of it is definitely a little in the weeds. It's definitely kind of up for debate right now, although I do kind of personally agree that when you have that many vortices all together spinning under the same mesocyclone, which is the spinning updraft of a supercell thunderstorm, there's definitely an argument to be made that those are all just circulations under the same parent tornado cyclone. Should probably take a look and see if they have any questions.
Yeah,
Cassie says, do you think the F5 Niles, Ohio tornado is the least talked about F5 tornado? And how do you think about the 4 EF4 tornadoes near the Pilger storm? Niles is definitely an interesting case. To have that many violent tornadoes over that portion of the United States is pretty rare. The Midwest definitely gets tornadoes pretty frequently, but violent tornadoes of that variety is pretty rare. You typically see an outbreak in that area like that maybe once every 20 or 30 years. Niles is definitely interesting. If there's another YouTuber on here called Weatherbox, I'm sure you guys have heard of him. He has a really good video on that tornado outbreak. But yeah, it's definitely not talked about as much. I mean, even I hadn't really heard too much about this one until I saw that video, so it's definitely pretty good.
I think
there's a lot of old tornadoes that don't get talked about enough.
This Niles F5 is the furthest east F5 in the United States. So it's kind of an anomalous tornado.
Yeah, and then the second part of that question, I think, was about Pilger.
Pilger? What do you think of the 4 F4s on Pilger?
It's pretty remarkable from one storm.
Yeah, to get 1 F4 on a storm is crazy, but to get 4, I mean, this storm only produced 5 tornadoes, I guess maybe 6 if you count these other little ones, but the fact that all of these tornadoes were F4 is really, really strange.
Yeah, that storm is, if you want to talk about like fascinating supercells, that's it right there, to have that many EF4 tornadoes from one storm, and also to have multiple occurrences of twin violent tornadoes on the ground at the same time. That's incredible.
You want to be?
Just like, if I had to pick one single storm that I wish I could see as a storm chaser, it's this one. It's just
Come to the living room and
I
find
think
out.
if I were to see
Johnny,
one
I don't care if you just
storm,
broke out of jail. You do not mess with
I
my
think
fun.
there's
Oh
two.
my God, it's you.
Surprised, Aisha?
Washington
What?
and Roanoke.
That you're
all
here,
the ones
or
that
that you're
Roanoke
talking.
F4s
Pick
was
one.
the one I wish
We
I
all
could have
thought
seen.
you were
I
dead.
think the
I know
Roanoke.
you
almost
love
was.
your Illinois
Well,
tornadoes.
for someone who
Yeah,
was
I'm very
you
biased.
look
I'm
great.
from Chicago, so
Did you do something with your hair?
I love.
Yeah, I've been getting that a lot.
Illinois
Yo, can we
tornadoes.
get back to business?
What's the rush?
Capital
Wait,
I've been
Montana,
stuck out there
yeah,
knowing that
June
bitch still
1st,
laid out in the
Ethan,
coma.
he always talks about
We
the
definitely
Montana
need to
one.
remind motherfuckers who we are.
I don't know.
That can't wait
That's a
till
good
after
one.
dinner.
No.
thing with Montana is you
You two
can't
haven't
get
changed
up
at
close
all.
and personal.
Well, you know what
you
there's a
can't
saying
really-
about dogs and blowing shit up.
There's just something about this
We
Illinois
get our
thing
crew
that's,
together. Once we got that, we can work on how we taking back our city.
One of my favorite type of
And
activity
where were
class,
you planning on having
you
this
should
little
also pay yourself into
2004.
is freeze.
I'm pretty sure this is a tornado.
Keeping your enemies.
Transpiration
No.
tornado.
The color's
Yeah,
very
so
soothing.
No.
all the corn,
Come on,
which
Ish.
Illinois has
This
a
ain't no
lot of,
fucking gang clubhouse.
causes dew point spreads to
Freeze.
increase.
Change it,
Use
please.
that cloud
We gotta
cover.
find a new
will
place.
Trap
Yeah.
a bunch of moisture at the ground, and you get crazy instability. I think something like this had like, I think the Roanoke tornado had like 7,000 joules per kilogram of K, which is just
Head
off
over to
the
the old
charts.
mission house. We should be able to
The
set up
Gerald,
shop.
Texas tornado,
Why
which
don't we
is
just set up shop at
commonly
the
known
church?
for being like
Alto
a
is
crazy high
renovated.
Cape
It turned
day,
it into a
it
tourist
had
trap.
like
You're
4,000
kidding
to
me.
5,000.
I wish I was.
And this,
We
the
gotta find a new
Roanoke had
place,
even
and the
more
mission
Cape.
house would be perfect.
It's just explosive amounts of potential
done.
energy just
No
waiting
wonder
to
they-
start
Check it out.
fires.
Years ago,
Yeah,
an
yeah, and
earthquake
if
dropped
the
part of the city
thunderstorm
below
is
sea
able
level.
to get
No matter than
ground-based,
clearing out the rubble, the
that's
city
when you're
just
in
filled
trouble.
over. There's an abandoned hotel.
Because
below
even with
us
lower
that
shear
I work on.
environments, if you have that
Alright, so
strong of
what's the
instability,
catch?
you have
We
that
gotta
much
look at
air
the
going
hotel.
straight up
So
when
that
there's
part
that
is
strong of an
done.
updraft. What it can do is
What?
the tiny amount of
That
that
part of the
wind shear or
event is done.
vorticity that's at the surface, it can compensate for it. Because what it does is it causes extremely low pressure and vorticity stretching at the surface. So that tiny amount of shear can get compensated by that extreme stretching, and you can still get violent tornadoes.
Yeah, the tornado genesis process with a high Cape low shear event is very different than a high shear low Cape. And that's kind of what's interesting with tornadoes is there's no one right answer. They're very different. There's different environments, different conditions. You know, each event is very special in its own right. And that's kind of why I get so much enjoyment out of looking into these things, because you're always learning something new.
Yeah, it's remarkable how, you know, these things aren't straightforward to forecast. You can have tons and tons and tons of different parameter spaces that can result in tornadoes that are completely different from each other. One ingredient can compensate for the other and vice versa, and it's fascinating. I mean, there's a reason why we're fascinated with studying these things.
Yep. Kathy asks, do I think there will ever be a dangerous tornado in Alaska? I'm going to answer that one, and no, I don't think so. Alaska does have tornadoes. There's one, the furthest north tornado happened here in 1976, but tornadoes in
Oh, you
Alaska
got
are
your
not
dog
going to
out.
be dangerous. Also, the population in Alaska is so spread out, it's
She's
never
a
going to be
gentle
dangerous.
swordsman.
So,
Yeah, I mean, Alaska's so huge that it wouldn't even surprise me if most of the tornadoes that do happen
Yeah,
up that
if
way
you want
never are
to,
even
it's
seen
not
by
like
any
that.
people up there.
yeah.
It's so far north, and the water in that portion of the world is typically way too cold to support severe thunderstorms.
yeah.
It can happen, it's just rare. But violent or strong tornadoes, I don't know about that.
What the?
Saw that Ethan was saying earlier.
Hey,
he
you
thought
can
her
both
favorite
get
storm
someone,
chase
I'll
the other
let you-
was.
Our favorite storm chase.
See, if I go here,
I'll
you
pull
didn't
up
want
your
to see
video.
this, but doesn't understand is that you can read this one to come.
There's one day in particular. It's not necessarily the best view of a tornado that I've seen, but this day in particular, I think I know the one that he's about to pull up is
The perfect
It's-
storm chase.
yeah, it just, the vibe of it was just perfect. Although going back, this intro's a little cringy. I definitely would do this differently today.
So yeah, this was May 26, 2021, and it was a 15%. It was a 15% PDS in Western Kansas. I mean, if you're a storm chaser, that is like as
Oh
good
my
as it
gosh,
gets.
yeah. Some of the best chase terrain in the world, and the storms there are always pretty.
Amazing place, high percentage. It's like we're licking our chops. And then we started off the day with this incredible mothership. You get your time lapse. Yeah, this looks just incredible.
Yeah, the Colby Sultan storm. I know that you have a specific comparison to what this looked like.
Yeah, it looks like a stealth bomber. You guys know what airplane that is. It's like a stealth bomber going across the landscape. And then we drove north. Also, we were hanging out with this guy.
I'm sure you guys know Pie.
Oh, hey, look, there's me, there's Kelton. This guy, more Pie. You guys know who that is.
Yeah, this day was pretty interesting because there were kind of two target areas to look at, and there was the main dry line, which if you're a storm chaser, it's like that's the one that you really want to go crazy because the storms are just so photogenic when it happens. Or there was the warm front, and we kind of positioned ourselves in a spot where we could play both targets, and I am so glad we did that because the dry line on this day busted. The warm front, which is where we were a little closer to, ended up going off like crazy.
And so we were kind of near Selden, and then there were storms going off. Unfortunately,
Now
we
you
were
got
too
fun.
far away from this furthest north storm, the Benkelman storm. But there was this other storm popping up to Benkelman south.
And what do I need
That
all these
storm
people for anyway?
was incredible.
No, they're just basically
I
there's
remember-
options for characters you could play.
I remember specifically we were driving north to Benkelman thinking we could catch that one. But I was looking over at this. I'm like, hold on. This storm looks pretty good. Like, I don't want to pass up on this. And sure enough, you're like, alright,
Yeah,
let's
that
commit
right there
to
is
it.
To be honest,
look
I
you
like
wanna
your
see.
Jane Car, but I've
Boom.
played
Storm.
Gene with
We got a tornado.
Not too
And
good.
this was just a great
So then, you can use Giona as a
Yeah, the
traitor
vibes from
and
this day were
Aito
just
as
incredible.
the-
I mean, it was one of those days where just everything worked and fell into place for us. It was really super stressful.
So which
Nothing
one
really
was just
went
wrong,
super
and then
wrong. I
Mario
know that
just
your
moved
car
like
kind of got
the
stuck in
end.
the mud for a
It
little bit.
was
We had to push
just
it out, and
as
then
kill off
That was
the
fun.
Pies got stuck,
we
and we
like
couldn't
that.
get that one out.
And,
Yeah, I wish we would have been closer to this tornado, but it's
So here on the right is the tornado we first saw, and then there was another one developing right in front of us.
Kind of a shithole,
This one was also really crazy.
but it's a shithole.
I mean, if you love like supercell
I don't know,
thunderstorm
man.
dynamics, this thing was incredible to see because it was
Maybe some
just
nice
a
furniture.
classic case of like a
Hand me a
supercell
strip.
cycling out in front of it with a new updraft, with a new tornado cyclone developing in front of it. It's just, if you're into that kind of science, this was incredible to see.
Oh, look at that. I just saw something. So, yeah, there are like little vortices at the ground underneath the circulation. But then eventually it really got its act together and there was like a really pronounced tornado funnel. It wasn't fully condensed, but there were intermittent ground circulations, so that was definitely a tornado.
My return,
Yeah.
like I said, this is a game that I want to slowly by slowly just have like even more multiple
It was just
playthroughs
the
with.
vibes
It's
of
just
the day
that
all falling into
you know,
place, so it
there's
kinda elevates it to my favorite.
GG tiles and
And
other titles like
here's,
this
like,
one.
the
I
structure.
as well like there's just so many games I wish to like replay that have low replay counts to my memory.
And then the grand finale, as you put it,
What?
is this.
Oh, then
gorgeous
you want to
storm
get
here.
up so I don't have to keep on filming my plot and give me all crazy feelings.
Yeah, it's just
Or
crazy.
you
This
can
is
just
all
swim
from
over
one
to
day
that
of storm
blinking place
chasing,
on the map.
like within a span of like
Blinking
4 or 5
where?
hours.
So yeah, that's, I would say, our favorite.
Oh, it's most likely going to be near the surface of water. That's the fastest I can go. Shit.
Let's see what other people are.
Yep.
I see shit. No, I'm going.
Someone asked, when do you think
I'm looking for
the next EF5 will occur? Kathy
it. Alright,
Good
since you
question.
can't John and Fontaine, you can basically
Probably
once you use up
controversial,
the
but
sprint,
it probably
then
won't occur
once
until
you use
they
up the
change
sprint, then you can just wait for it to regenerate and keep
And
on
I
sprint.
think what's probably going to happen is they're going to change the EF scale, and some of the previous tornadoes, like
Press and hold.
maybe even Mayfield, will get upgraded to EF5. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's
I would
possible.
say if we,
for the
yeah, I would
blinking
say if we don't see one in
conch
the
shell
next
on your
couple
map.
of years, that we probably won't get one unless like something like Joplin happens again, or they upgrade the scale.
Down is
It's-
what? Oh, you just
It's
look
just
down
the
where
way
it
the
says
EF
and
scale's
press
been
a
implemented lately. They're
you know,
getting more and more
14.
strict about what they want to classify as EF5, so it's getting harder and harder for a tornado to fit those conditions. So it might be a while, it might be next year. I have no idea.
Well, and the point I was making is it's possible the next EF5
Now
already
what?
happened, and they'll just upgrade one of the ones like I said, Mayfield or El Reno. I think those are the two that are probably the highest on the list.
Oh.
Bologna really should. Bologna is
We
ridiculous.
just still-
Should have been EF5. I don't know.
Yeah,
which ones.
there's a few tornadoes that have happened since 2013 that are definitely a little controversial about their ratings, but we've gone into that so many times.
Yeah, I'm gonna make. I'm repeating myself here, but I'm gonna make one more EF scale video. It's gonna be like a well-produced video, not like my last one, which was just stream highlights.
Is that a
But,
flower or
and
is
then I
that
am
a
not
actual?
talking about it again,
That was a crazy.
unless there's like another crazy, horrible rating by the NWS,
Take much
which
to kill it.
I'll probably say something. But
When it comes down to underwater stuff,
Anything else
if
for
you
you
know
guys?
how to use any underwater ability correctly, you don't have to apply something for long. It doesn't matter how strong you are and what
Excuse me,
level-
guys. You'll have it. Somewhat of a burp.
I'm looking at chat. August 31st, 2014.
I'm not familiar with that though. August 21st, 2014. What happened? Yeah, Tornado Archive. If you guys haven't used it before, it's an incredible website. Go check it out.
Okay. Yeah, this day. I don't know if this was a derecho or it was like a single supercell, but this thing put down a ton of tornadoes. None of them were strong, but it just was just
Oh yeah,
boom, boom,
I'm
boom,
just
boom,
now
boom.
seeing it on your screen. That looks like either like a bookend vortex just spraying tornadoes everywhere, or maybe a supercell or something. That's definitely strange though. That's a ton of tornadoes from one small like area.
And what's weird is if you're getting this many tornadoes, you would think some of them would be a little bit stronger. To have no EF1, EF2, wait, hold on. There were a couple EF1s. To have no EF2s or above is really weird.
Yeah. Hawk Chases asks what my opinions are on Retimmer's tornado outlook for 2024. I haven't actually seen it yet, but aside from just using some of the teleconnections, like whether it's going to be an El Nino, La Nina, or ENSO neutral year, you can kind of get an idea for like a ballpark figure of how many tornadoes a year we'll have. But in my personal opinion, forecasting that far out, like months and months in advance about how many tornadoes are going to happen is kind of pointless. I mean, there's so many variables that go into it last second.
And I think long-range forecasting is like pretty inaccurate, and also it doesn't really make a big difference. Like, we're storm chasers, we're gonna go out, we're gonna try and see tornadoes. There will be tornadoes, whether or not it's 1,000 or 1,500. I don't think it's gonna really be that much of a difference. So definitely, there's always every year there's gonna be tornadoes. Tornadoes are just a fact of life out here in the United States.
A lot of questions here about some pretty old tornadoes that I am not super familiar with.
Yeah, I see the April 17th, 1963 Kankakee.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting tornadoes from quite a long time ago that I'm sure are really fascinating.
Oh, okay. F4 that went, due east in Kankakee. So I grew up in Chicago, up here. One video I was thinking about doing was a Chicago tornadoes video. I don't know if there's anyone else here from Chicago, but I think Chicago has a pretty rich history with tornadoes, and a video like that would be really interesting. Kind of more of a passion project. I don't know if it really applies to a lot of people, but
Yeah.
Chicago has
That
some really
northern-
cool tornadoes.
Yeah, that northern portion of Illinois actually gets tornadoes pretty frequently.
Yeah, there was that outbreak this year. Actually, there was a tornado that went right by where I grew up. I was not there because I live in Colorado now. Chicago had an EF5. Yes, Chicago, well, not technically Chicago. It was Plainfield, which is kind of like an outer suburb of Chicago.
The only August F5.
And I'm not gonna spoil too much here, but Kelton is gonna have.
I'm just trying to get the feels for what to adjust here.
I wasn't supposed to say that.
Oh, it's all good. I'm in the middle of kind of getting ready to move, so it might be a little delayed, but I
Dang, do you actually see that? I couldn't guess right.
Yep.
If you guys have seen
And
any of my other
I've
videos.
seen a sneak peek of it, and Kelton, you did a good job. That's gonna be a really good one. And you've already made good videos, and I think this is like one of your best. So that's gonna be
It'll be a fun one.
Really cool.
Ooh, I'm starting to hear thunder outside.
Oh yeah. Alright, I keep seeing Carolinas, so we'll go to the Carolinas. Okay, kind of an interesting tidbit, but you really see there's a decrease in tornadoes right over the Appalachian Mountains. I think that's, there's two reasons for that. One, I think mountains do definitely have an impact on tornado genesis. When you have lots of hills, it's going to be harder for the vorticity aggregation to take place because the mountains are literally disrupting the process. It just makes it more complicated. Also, this is kind of middle of nowhere. I like to call it boo-foo. There's just not a lot of people out here, so I think tornadoes just don't really produce damage. If they do form, they'll just like do some damage on trees. And
Yeah,
not
the
get
Appalachians,
documented.
I'm sure that there are tornadoes up there. They're a little more rare, but it's definitely less frequent. And like you said, that area of the United States can get really rural really quickly, so you may not even be able to find it. There's so many trees up there, dude, it's hard to find damage.
But if you are southeast of the Appalachians and kind of like the flat part of North Carolina, South Carolina, tornadoes are absolutely a threat. You can absolutely get tornadoes. So
Yeah,
unless you're living in the Appalachian Mountains, you're not in the clear.
Yeah, this kind of brings up a pretty good point about where exactly Tornado Alley is. It doesn't really have a strict boundary. I mean, basically anywhere where you're not sitting directly in the mountains east of the Rockies in the United States can get tornadoes. I mean, this one that we're looking at right now is called Carolina Alley. There's Dixie Alley, which is kind of, the southeast area, and then you have like traditional Tornado Alley, and then there's like the Midwest area, which some people call Hoosier Alley. It's basically everywhere east of the Rocky Mountains in the United States can get tornadoes. Some of them can be pretty significant. I mean, you would not think that, North and South Carolina are tornado states, but there's been multiple violent tornadoes in that area. Same thing in like portions of the Northeast or even the Mid-Atlantic. They've all had significant tornadoes. I mean, violent violent or strong tornadoes, and basically anywhere east of the Rockies is nothing new. It does happen. It's just some areas get it more frequently than others.
All right, Arp Takeo tipped $5. Thank you so much. So they're from Minneapolis, and they'd like to know thoughts on the June 14th, 1981 F3 that went straight through downtown. Okay. Let's see if we can find that one. Thank you so much for the There it is. Got lucky, first one I clicked. So let's take a look. Yeah, so it went straight through southern Minneapolis. Looks like the city might have been a little bit further north, but it was a pretty wide tornado here. It was rated F3, which is a very strong tornado and deadly. But yeah, this one, pretty interesting. One thing I want to talk about is tornadoes that go through cities. I kind of brought this up in the chat of Ethan's stream yesterday, but I think some people think that cities are not tornado prone, and that's just straight up wrong. Cities are absolutely tornado prone. One city in particular, and this is relevant, especially with yesterday, but Nashville.
Nashville's been a tornado hotspot the last few years.
If there's one city that's been hit more than any other, it's Nashville. I mean, this is like, these are going straight through the heart of Nashville. And yeah, we did have one last night.
I saw someone mention about Houston. Houston gets quite a few tornadoes pretty often. In fact, I think they had one with a tornado emergency earlier this year.
Houston. Yep. Houston gets them. Although Houston is like the largest metroplex in the country.
Yeah, if you want to talk about like the definition of urban sprawl, it's Houston.
Also, let's see what other cities. Chicago, the Oaklawn F4. I've talked about that. I'm probably gonna talk
Yeah,
about
it's
this
like
one
your
again.
origin story tornado.
This is this tornado that really got me into tornadoes. Because my mom saw it. Chicago, Nashville, Cincinnati gets really, if I were to pick one, Nashville is the one that. So some of these cities, Mississippi, Alabama, Birmingham, absolutely a hot spot. I don't know if those kind of cities. Oklahoma City, you guys know that.
Fort Worth tornado 2000. Yep, Fort Worth gets the whole metroplex from Dallas is it gets tornadoes pretty frequently. In fact, I would say out of all the tornado alley cities, that one's probably the most likely to get whacked by a violent one at some point soon.
Alright. So we've been talking for quite a while. I did kind of want to bring up some announcements. It's December. We have a few more weeks left of 2023, and 2024 is coming up fast. So I'm really thinking about doing more next year. I'm gonna go solo here, and then maybe after this.
Just so you guys know here, not a lot of people really want to say this when they're straight. They just go with whatever is in the mainstream media for how the years work. But basically, there's actually 13 months in our actual years. And because of such, how it got, because of how the messed up Roman Catholic churches, like that I'm a Christian and all that. I'm not I wasn't ever a Catholic. And take a look at these shows and all that represent, the Catholics, or shows what they're truly like and all that, and man, huge head shaker. But anyways, I'm just saying is that right now, the month we're in, it's actually supposed to be the 10th month, and that there's a month before March.
like a week or
and
two
pretty much as I can,
be fast.
keep a recollection of this.
And
I would
also, I
like
want
to
you guys
just,
to be able to
switch
take
up,
the stream and report it.
switch things up
This
to
way,
where,
getting the word out
to at
first.
least
Like, I
to
want you guys to share my stream. Like, if
extend,
I get a tornado, I want to get the word out
the,
as quickly as
year.
possible.
So right now we're
I'm not
not
a huge
actually
fan
at
of
the end of the
the
year.
current
We're
way
more like at the 10th month
way tornadoes
of an actual year, but it's unknown if the year is actually 2023 because of such a month mess
Other
up.
things, I want to do kind of like what we're doing.
And the 13th month is called Vader.
Do event forecasting.
I know, it's not like Darth Vader, but it's spelled different. Don't know if George Lucas got the idea of Vader from the missing month. Well, the month that over time the Catholics try to hide.
Posting videos and replying to comments, it's not really the best interaction. It's kind of like a weird, like I don't get to know anyone.
Okay, so this is some kind of athlete
Other
class, or
thing,
I wanted to see
live
to get new
interviews.
threads set
So,
somewhere else.
Kind of like what I'm doing with Kelton here, but I want to get some other people on. A couple people I want to interview. Hank is a big one. Dr. Lee Orff, I want to interview him. There's a couple, maybe like Max Olson, he's a great chaser. Get Reed on the stream as well. I really want to just bring other people on the channel and maybe use the interview as a chance to use them in future videos. Also, another announcement. I am currently working with Skip Talbot on the April 4th incident from earlier this year. Skip is doing a full-on analysis on both my video and Tanner's video. I can't share it now, but he has found some really interesting things. I'm not going to say it, but you can kind of see on my screen right there what he found with that tornado that I was hit by. So yeah, that's coming up. Another goal for 2024, and this is, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't want to make any promises. This is a very, very difficult goal, but I think it is possible. I want to get a 360 camera inside of a tornado. I think getting a tornado, 360 Tornado Pro video would be extremely interesting to watch and just fascinating, and it also could provide scientific insights. And right now I'm at 33.
Remember guys, science can only explain so much of God's own work.
Want to get my play button, and I'm putting that thing into a tornado. I don't care about things. I want to put 100K play button inside of a tornado. That'd be hilarious. I also am introducing memberships because, like I said, I'm going to be starting to do live streams, and you get quite a few things. The loyalty badges, I got these like really cool retro Fujita badges, and I do want to say, if you don't want to do this, like totally fine. I just wanted to put this out there. I've been contacted by a lot of people who ask me like, "Hey Chris, how can we support you?" I'm just kind of putting this out there. So if you want to do it, great. If not, also totally fine. But there are some extra perks. I'm going to be putting out my high resolution photos for you guys to use for whatever. I have some old, long form raw footage that you guys can also see. I don't like putting raw footage out as normal videos because they don't necessarily do that well. Also, I'll keep you guys updated. And the other thing I want to talk about, and I want to get your input on this because this is all totally up in the air, but I'm thinking about doing interesting types of merch. On my last video, someone mentioned coffee table book. I know Thomas Grzoulis does a really long form book, and that's amazing information. But kind of what I'm thinking is more of just a fun visual graphic novel sort of thing with the tornado tracks as well as information and photos, something you can put out and just share your tornado love with whoever passes through your house. But I will say a book like this is a huge undertaking. It would be a lot of work. So if something like that, I don't know, that would probably be end of year earliest, end of 2024 at the earliest. Also, this is the other cool one, tornado cards, and this is a product idea that I've really liked. And it's not my idea, other people have gone with it, but I would love to do something like this. I think it's cool to have like little memorabilia as well as just like little keepsakes. There's a million other prints you can get out there. So many people have prints, but if I'm gonna do merch, I want to do something a little bit more special and unique. So I guess I'm gonna read chat here for a little bit, see what you guys think. But yeah. Bubbles likes cards. So these, I think the cards, I've looked at the viability, and I think I could probably get the cards out by April this year. It would be an initial investment to get them all printed, but I think it's doable. Kathy noticed the F6 badge, yes. So the loyalty badge starts at F1 and goes all the way up to F6. So there have been two F6, the Xenia and the Lubbock tornado, I think were the two F6s. And they were initially rated F6 and people kind of decided that F5 is as high as it goes.
Are you done with the event?
What?
So yeah,
Are you done
I'm
with the
over
event?
here where it's pointing go to the kingdom of water.
Answering questions. And I think my whole point of doing this is I
You
want
got
to do
through
this
the
more.
bottles
I
card now,
want
Brad.
to interact with you guys more.
Is that where I'm supposed to go next?
And yeah, I think it could be beneficial. I
Put it
want
on
to
the
teach,
map.
and I know you guys want to
Like
do
it's
it.
on Rebel. You need to do that part, did you?
No, we will never get an F6,
Right.
Ori. And
Yeah,
Alex.
it's on the water.
It's kind of like a joke.
I know it's underwater, but you didn't need to do the land part, right?
So, yeah,
All that was
I'll
running
leave it at
and
that.
jumping and flying.
Thanks for being here, and if you guys want to support me,
I figured
that
I
would
didn't
be
do that
totally
part.
awesome.
You know where to go back in the water.
Come back and we can do a little bit more Q&A and then
Smart. Didn't need that part, did you?
Well, since I have everyone unlocked, I practically just teleport them to this
I turned on one board. And then I did any area turn on from 10 to 11. I didn't do
I'm
the
not
one
leaving. I'm gonna be here
there.
for probably another 15.
Wander. No.
But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, let us know.
We back to doing the fight
Yeah,
again.
2024 will be an interesting year. I know I didn't watch the recent video, but I'm very optimistic. I'm getting better at storm chasing. Every year I feel like I'm
Hope so.
improving, and I'm learning more about like what kind of videos you guys want to watch.
Where they
I want to do.
robot.
And,
Yo, Mr. Crush Robot Guy.
not only I think tornadoes, there will be a lot of tornadoes in 2024. Just based
Well, I think Matt is more hateful and spiteful to human-looking robots than I am.
Let's go back to this. What do I think of Clarksville
You
tornado?
want to get them on.
Okay, you know what?
What?
It actually had some damage.
What?
I think
that thing.
high end EF3. If I was a betting man, it would be like
Huh?
EF3 165.
What's he for then?
But
What?
I do
When the?
think there's a
Oh,
chance
okay.
they go
That,
EF4.
that's the right gadget.
So my guess is high end EF3, low end EF4.
I don't
don't think-
understand what gadget. How about that
It's not going to be
one?
EF5.
The Lumen
If that's if you're wondering EF5,
I
no,
put
definitely
G
not.
on the map.
No, when it comes down to a domain or an
No,
event
SBC
where
is
they give
probably
a special
EF4.
attributes, it's always
I do
Oh, no,
EF4 at the highest.
See, even.
Later you can do always fun. Here's Nicholas's.
Are you
This
shooting?
totally obliterated, well-built house. Something like this might get 170. Nick is really sad to see